Choi Yun-wo is a quiet, dumb, and ugly high school student who derives pleasure in chatting random strangers on an app. While doing so, he gets attracted to the very beautiful, yet clueless Sangha, a girl he met on this chat app, and realizes that she attends the same school as him. Not wanting to reveal his identity to her, he opts to become her friend in secret. However, Choi always gets into trouble and is bullied by one of his old friends, Taeyang. In the midst of all this, he tries to make friends, but finds it hard to do so. Before this, Choi always looked down on himself. He tells himself that he does not like to go to school as he believes that it is hell for children, while reminding himself that he does not have friends. A student named Lee Taeyang tells him that he should give him his phone, but he refuses. Choi tells Taeyang that he was caught using the phone the previous time, but as Taeyang bullies Choi, he hands his phone to him on his way home after school. The boy begins to check his phone and realizes that Taeyang has bought some things. Then he tells himself that his mother would yell at him, but he becomes happy as he was able to get his phone back. On getting home, Choi goes to his room and he tells himself that he is going to have his happy moments. Then he takes his phone and begins to chat random people on the internet, and he suddenly meets a girl who is also his age. Choi begins to chat with the girl, and he realizes that he is having fun by chatting with her, and after discussing about a lot of things, the girl tells him that she has to go to bed as she has class duties the following day in her school, and he yells her to chat him up once she is in her school. The following morning, Choi wakes up early as he does not like to get to school at the same time with other students, but when he gets to the class, he opens a book and lays his head on it. Suddenly, Choi sees a lady walking into the classroom, and he puts his head back on the locker to avoid greeting her. Then he receives a message from the girl he was chatting with the previous night that she has gotten to school, but she has company with a guy who got to school early. Choi raises his head to reply the girl, and she immediately tells him that the person with her in the classroom has woken up. Then Choi becomes shocked as he thinks the girl in front of him is the one he is chatting with. Then he tells her that she should go and greet the person, and he also realizes that she is coming towards him. The girl taps him, and when he raises his head up, she introduces herself as Sangha. Then Choi becomes more shocked. Choi becomes scared and nervous as he has not spoken to any lady apart from his mother, and he begins to think of how to reply to the girl's greeting, but after a while, he talks to her, and she tells him that he does not have to be nervous. Two students suddenly walk in as they are discussing, and Yun immediately leaves, while the students begin to wonder what is going on between the two of them. As Sangha walks away, Choi tells himself that the first friend he would ever make in his life would be from a random chat online. During the first period, Sangha sends a message to Choi and tells him that the boy he had told her to greet was behaving so weird, and when he tells her that she could be his friend, she tells him that she cannot be friends with him as she needs to get to know him first. Sangha tells Choi that she was using the app not because of the fact that she is bored, but because she needs some relationship advice. Choi is surprised at the discovery, and during the sixth period in the gym, Choi begins to wonder why they made him play soccer, as he is not good at it. Then he also laments on how they had made him the goalkeeper. He begins to think about what Yun had told him, and he also wonders why she could not ask her friends if she really needed relationship advice from someone. Taeyang suddenly yells at Choi that he should pass the ball, and as Choi sees the ball, he asks himself when they played it to him. But Taeyang continues to yell at him for daydreaming at the goal post. Then he yells Choi to play the ball at them so that they would continue their game. Choi kicks the ball, and it mistakenly hits Taeyang, and when he begins to insult Choi for intentionally hitting him, the class rep named Lim Da-yoon tells Taeyang on Choi's behalf that it was a mistake. Da-yoon then volunteers to take the goalpost while Choi goes to sit, and as Choi thanks Da-yoon, he notices that he is fixing his attention on Sangha, who is also watching with interest. On seeing this, Choi tells himself that he already understands what is going on. After school, Choi walks home, and he continues to receive text messages from Yun, and when he gets home, she asks him if she is not disturbing him, and he tells her that she just realizes that she has been texting him too much. Choi decides that he would reveal his identity to her, but he tells himself after remembering what she had told him when she met him, that he does not want to lose their friendship. Then he clears the message he had typed before. Sangha reminds Choi of the relationship advice she asked him, and he tells her that he cannot give her any advice as he does not know how to. Then she suggests they become text buddies, and he agrees. The following day, Choi goes to school early, and he tells himself that he has to get some sleep as he could not sleep early because of Sangha's text messages to him. But in getting to the classroom, he lays his head on the table and Sangha comes in. Choi begins to wonder what she is doing, but he remembers that she had told him she has class duties for the week, and as Sangha drops her bag, she greets Choi, and when he tries to tell her what he is doing, she shuts him by telling him to have fun. Choi plugs in his earphones. He begins to listen to music, and when Sangha hears the music, she goes to meet him and asks him where he heard the song from as he is the first person she has met who knows the song. Then Choi begins to wonder how she heard, and he immediately realizes that he did not plug his earphones correctly. Sangha then tells Choi that she knows someone who had recommended the song to her, and when she meets him, she would introduce the person to him. Then she also begins to talk about her text buddy and how she feels that he is a good person. Choi decides to help Sangha and Da-yoon get together, and he goes to meet Da-yoon that he is writing a novel, and his lead character is like him, and he needs to also get a female character. So he wants to ask him who his ideal female is. Then after getting information from him, he goes to tell Sangha. After telling her all she needs to do, he also helps her to plan the perfect meeting between her and Da-yoon. After helping Sangha and Da-yoon get closer, Choi becomes lonely, and he begins to get sad as he no longer receives messages from Sangha again. During their free time, Choi sits with Yu and he sees Sangha and Da-yoon talking them. He begins to tell himself that she is happy with him, and she does not know that he is only trying to be her friend as he does not have anybody to talk to. Yu looks at Choi, and when he sees that he is looking at Sangha, he then asks Choi if he has confessed his feelings to her. And when Choi sees that Yu is misunderstanding him, he decides to tell him his little secret. As Choi is about to tell Sangha the secret, the soccer team plays the ball, and as it is about to hit some girls walking, Choi immediately goes to catch the ball. While going to class, Choi then sends a message to Sangha hoping she would reply him. But as Choi gets to the class jester is being punished by their teacher, and Choi becomes lonely and sad as he wishes to become closer to Sangha. And he also asks himself who is he to her as she no longer needs him after she has gotten closer to the person she likes. After school, Choi stays behind to send Sangha a message, but he is interrupted by Da-yoon, who comes to the class to finish his duties, and Choi asks Da-yoon how the club he would join, as it would be okay if he joins the soccer club, but he tells Choi that he is joining the debate club so as to boost his resume. Da-yoon also asks Choi about the novel contest. Then he also tells him that when he searched, he did not see any novel contest. Then Choi becomes speechless as he does not know what he would tell him. After school, Choi goes to the gaming center, and on his way, he recounts how he had successfully lied to Da-yoon that he was preparing for the novel contest in advance, and that was why he could not find any sites on the internet. On getting to the gaming center, Choi begins to play a game and his phone begins to ring, and when a student Park Hae-min sees that he is the one, she becomes angry as she thinks he is trying to show off that he has a girlfriend because of the name he is using in the game. Suddenly, Hae-min goes to meet Choi and tells him that he should pick up his phone as it is disturbing her, but as she looks closely, she tells him that she did not know that he is the one that saved her from getting hit by a ball during their free time in school. Hae-min peeps at Choi's screen, and she sees his rank, but Choi becomes proud and tells her that he and his friend Yu can carry her along in the game, but when Hae-min shows them her own rank, realizes that her rank is higher than theirs. In school the following day, the teacher comes to the class to announce the clubs they are going to be in, and when the teacher tells them to raise their hand if they are interested in each club, Choi tells himself that he would go to any club Sangha is so as to get closer to her. He remembers that she had told him that she would be joining the same club as Da-yoon. Then Choi raises his hand to join the debate club as well, but he becomes surprised when Taeyang also raises his hands that he would be joining the debate club as well. It is the first day of the club, and as Choi sits, he begins to see that he is a loser as he has no friend to talk to, and he sees that Da-yoon is sitting with Hae-min and Sangha, and they are all discussing. Then he also sees Taeyang talking with some students also, and he begins to call himself a loser. Choi then hears Sangha calling him as she tells him to come and sit with them, but as he is thinking of hesitating, Da-yoon also calls him, and he moves closer to them. Then they all begin to discuss, and when they talk about games, he begins to tell them everything he knows, but as he tells himself that he might be considered as a loser, he suddenly stops taking about what he is good at. Choi thinks of an opportunity to be close to Sangha, and he begins to tell him about himself. He mentions how he likes songs, then he also talks about the things he has discussed with Sangha. While chatting, but Da-yoon changes the topic as Choi tells them that he plays games, and he begins to talk to Hae-min. Then Sangha becomes jealous as she asks herself if Da-yoon likes smart girl, just like Hae-min, who is the top student of the school. Taeyang comes to meet Choi and asks him why he has been avoiding him since, but Choi tells himself that he would not allow Taeyang to ruin his reputation as he thinks that the other students would be looking at him like a loser who get bullied every time. Taeyang also tells the students that he is friends with Choi, and he tells him that he should put on his data as he needs it for something, but after thinking about his reputation, Choi immediately yells at Taeyang that he should, but pestered him as he has told him that he does not have any data. As Taeyang sees that Choi is not willing to leave his phone, they begin to argue, and soon they get into a fight and Taeyang injures Choi, but when the teacher comes, the teacher takes them to his office to settle their scores. On getting home, Sangha narrates all that had happened to Choi, and he becomes happy as he is able to talk to her again, and his plans of her becoming his good friend would be feasible. The following morning, Choi wakes up to receive a message on his phone, and when he thought it was Sangha again, he becomes shocked as he realizes that Da-yoon had created a ground, and it was also added. Choi becomes happy as he tells himself that he has the chance to get more friends. Then he checks the people in the group, and he is cool with them all except Taeyang. Then they all discuss about going to watch a movie together during the weekend. Da-yoon messages Choi and asks him how he is feeling. Then he tells him that he wanted to settle the issue between him and Taeyang, and that is the reason he suggested that they all go to watch a movie. But he also adds that Taeyang had told them that he is not going. Choi goes to meet his mother, and he asks her for money because he wanted to get clothes he would wear to the movies. And when he gets to the store where they are selling clothes, he becomes confused as he has never bought clothes for himself. Choi gets the clothes and he goes back home as he is getting excited for the movie they are going to watch. Sangha sits in her house as she becomes excited that she is going to watch a movie with Da-yoon. Then she gets a message from someone who tells her that he is in front of her house. In schools the following day, Da-yoon goes to meet Sangha, and he asks her why she is sitting alone, and she tells him that she is fine. But he keeps asking her if she wants to talk about something that is bothering her, but she tells him she is okay. Da-yoon goes back to his seat, and he begins to wonder why Sangha is not talking to him. But Choi, who has been watching, tells himself that it is time for him to go to her aid as he knows she is suffering from stomach ache. He brings out some painkillers and tells himself that he has thought of many ways he can be helping Sangha, and he thinks she would eventually be closer to him if he helps her with the painkillers. Choi goes to meet Sangha, and as he asks her what is wrong with her, she tells him not to worry about it as she is okay. Then Choi realizes that she is not having a stomach ache. Then he goes back to his seat and tells himself that she would tell him if he messages her on the Ranchet app. That evening, Choi messages Sangha and asks her what is wrong with her as she is not replying his messages. Then she tells him that she had made a mistake of giving her number out on the Ranchet app to a person she met before him, and the person had messaged her on her Facebook account and also sent her a picture of her school to her. Sangha sends the messages and pictures the person has sent to her to Choi, and he becomes angry. Then she tells him that he is a faceless person that she does not know, and that is why she does not want to chat with him anymore. Choi throws his phone away and begins to think of how to help Sangha, but after thinking for a while, he tells himself that he cannot help her as she had told him that she does not want people to know that she is using the Ranchet app. Choi goes to school the next day, and while the teacher was teaching the class, he tells them to take care of themselves because of the season they are. Then he also tells them that Sangha is absent because she has caught a cold. Choi begins to think of what he can do to help Sangha. Then he also becomes worried that she would get behind in schoolwork as she keeps skipping school. After the lesson, Choi walks through the halls and he begins to tell himself that he needs to help Sangha catch the person who is stalking her. Suddenly, Da-yoon comes to meet a Hook and asks him if he knows why Sangha is not in school, and Choi tells him that he does not know as they do not chat, and he also adds that she would come for their movie hangout during the weekend. As Da-yoon leaves, he begins to look at Choi, and Choi wonders why he has come to ask him about Sangha. After school, Choi sends Sangha some messages and tells her to be careful. Then he also tells her that he would help her to look for the stalker. Choi goes through the pictures Sangha had sent to him, and he begins to state some theories regarding the stalker, and he decides to wait till evening as all the pictures were taken in the evening. But while waiting, Choi sees Hammond. Hammond asks him why he is waiting behind, and he tells her that he is waiting for someone, but she tells him that he could have waited for the person in a meeting place meant for boys. After talking to Hammond, Choi suddenly realizes that the picture that was sent to Sangha were taken in the morning, and the person is probably a student of their school. Choi tells himself that his priority is to catch the thief, as he also notices that the picture was taken on a Sunday morning, and they have to go to the movies on that same Sunday. Choi continues to wonder how he is going to catch the stalker, but he tells himself that he could get beaten as he is not confident that he would be able to help Sangha. Yu comes to meet Choi and tells him that they should go to the gaming center, but Choi does not answer him because she is lost deep in thoughts, as he tells himself that he and Sangha are alike as they are both helpless. On the day they are supposed to go to the movies, Hammond and Da-yoon waits for Sangha and Choi, but when Sangha arrives, she apologizes to them and tells them that she had missed her bus, which was the reason why she could not come early. Hammond then asks Sangha if she knows if Choi would come, but she tells her that they do not have each other's numbers. Da-yoon becomes happy as he sees Sangha. Then he tells the ladies that he wants to get the tickets, and as he is about to leave, Sangha tells him that she has something to tell him. Meanwhile, Choi goes to where the pictures are taken, and he tells himself that he has to look for the stalker, and after thinking for a while, he takes out his phone and pretends to talk to Sangha while making noise to attract attention. Then he begins to walk into a dark alley, so that he would be sure that anybody who had followed him to the alley is the stalker. As Choi walked into the alley as he pretends to receive the call from Sangha, he notices that someone had been following him, and he tells himself that he has found the stalker. As Choi turns, he sees a good-looking man in front of him, and the man tells him that he knows someone he is looking for, which is Sangha, as he is her relative from the university, and he wants to meet her. Choi knows that he is lying and he is the stalker. Then he boldly tells the man that he is stalking her. Then the man admits it and tells Choi that he is doing so because he likes Sangha. Choi becomes defensive, and the man asks him if he is her boyfriend, and he tells the man that he is Sangha, as he has been pretending to be a female. But the man laughs at him and suddenly punches him in the face as he tells him that he has spoken to Sangha before, and he knows that she is really a female. Meanwhile, Sangha tries to tell Da-yoon what is going on, but she remembers Choi's message, and she begins to wonder if he truly wants to help her. But Da-yoon asks her what is going on with her as she has been looking worried. Then she tells Da-yoon that she is using a random chatting app and someone is stalking her. At the dark alley, Choi begins to think of what to do, and the man asks Choi who he is to Sangha, and he tells the man that he does not know her, and she had sent him to come and find out who the stalker it is. The man then tells him that he should call Sangha, that she should come and meet him, but he tells the man that he does not have her number. Then the man tells him that he would give him her number on his phone. As the man brings out his phone to take the number, Choi suddenly snaps the phone out of his hands and smashes it on the floor. Then he also uses a huge stone to break the phone. Then he tells the man that he has lost Sangha's number, and he would not be able to contact her again. It begins to rain and Choi continues to try to make the stalker go away, but he is beaten, and he becomes weak as the stalker tells him that he would make sure he beats him up. Meanwhile, after telling Da-yoon her secret, Sangha becomes scared that he might judge her, but he tells her to be calm as he would always be by her side. The stalker begins to hit Choi and Choi becomes helpless. Then the man begins to tell Choi that Sangha had liked him, and they were talking to each other because she had told him that she feels comfortable with him, and it would have been okay if Choi had not interfered. Choi begins to insult the stalker as he tells him that he should face the reality as Sangha does not know him or what he looks like. Choi continues to provoke the stalker and tells him some things he had always wanted to say to himself, because he had found out that he is doing what he is doing for Sangha, because he has a crush on her, and not because he wanted to be her friend. Da-yoon tells Sangha that he had also used the random chatting app before, and as they begin to talk, Sangha feels relieved of her problems. Choi continues to struggle as the stalker tells him that he would beat him up, but as the talker tells Choi that he would take Sangha's number from his phone. He realizes that Choi only has 3 numbers on his phone. The stalker calls Choi a loser, but as he continues to beat Choi up, a lady comes to stop him. The lady yells at the stalker that she would call the police on him as he has beaten a man to the point that he has become unconscious, but the stalker tells her that he is not at fault as he is the victim, but the lady does not believe him. The lady goes to meet Choi and immediately recognizes him, but as the stalker sees that they know each other, he begins to run away, and as the lady sees that he is escaping, she tries to call the police, but Choi tells her wearily that she should let him go. Choi stands up and thanks the lady, but she ignores his appreciation after telling him that he does not recognize her. Then the lady walks away, and Choi begins to walk home, and he forgets about the lady that saved him. Choi goes to the hospital to get his face treated, and he gets bandages on his face. Then on getting to school the next day, he hears the way that his newfound friends are discussing about the movie they had gone to watch, but he tells himself that he is happy as he sees that Sangha is feeling better. Yu suddenly sees Choi and he calls attention on him as he asks him if he got beaten again, but Choi tells him that he only tripped on the road and fell on his face. Then Sangha and Da-yoon come sit meet Choi, and Sangha becomes worried about him, which makes him feel special as all of them asks him if he is fine. Choi tells them that he is okay, and Taeyang come to hit him, but Da-yoon tells him not to look for trouble. But before leaving, Taeyang tells Da-yoon that he has not seen Choi's true side as he is pretending to them. Later that evening, Choi decides to cut off his relationship with Sangha as he tells her that she does not need him anymore, but she tells him that he should not delete her as she wants to meet him so that they would be friends. Choi begins to prepare for their mock test in school, and he begins to think of what he would do as Sangha had told him that she wants to meet him. As he continues to read, he suddenly dozes off, and when he wakes up, he tells himself that he has to read for the exams. Then he picks up his phone because he needs something to distract himself so that he would not sleep off. He goes to the Ran chat app and begins to message strange people like he does before, but he notices that all the people he is chatting with are not giving him the kind of fun he wants, as they are all asking if he is a male or a female, and when he tells them that he is a male, they all deletes him. Choi then thinks of an idea, and he begins to message random people, and he tells them that he is a girl. But when one of the men asks him to send a picture of his hand, he snaps his beautiful hand and adds a filter to make it look like a girl's hand. Choi begins to feel bad, and he takes his mind off it because they are all perverts who are looking for young girls to devour, and he tells himself that he has to teach them a lesson. That night, Choi successfully deceives 6 men who he called perverts that he is a girl, and he lured them to meet him in front of the gaming center. The following day, Choi goes to the gaming center, and as he approaches the entrance, he sees the number of men standing to meet the lady he had told them he was, and he asks himself if he actually messaged them all. One of the men then messages him and tells him that he is waiting, but as he checks his messages, he realizes that all the men had messaged him. Choi becomes scared as he sees that the men are much, but he tells himself that they might be there for different purposes. But when he texts all of them that they should raise their hand if they are there, and all the men raise their hands, and they realize they have been fooled. All the men begin to go one after the other, and Choi receives a message from another man that he is on his way, but as the man comes out, he realizes that the man is Yu, his friend. Choi becomes shocked, and when Yu moves closer to him, he narrates the way he had met the girl he is taking to on the Ranchet app. Then, Choi scolds him for believing a girl he has not met, but after Yu tells him about fate and how he really feels while talking to the girl he just met, Choi becomes guilty, and he decides that he would continue to chat with Yu till he finds a suitable girl for himself. Then Choi tells Yu that they should go and play game as his game rank has reduced. As they are about to walk into the center, Hammond greets them, and as they are talking, she notices that Choi has a scar on his face, and when she asks him if it is Taeyang that hit him, he tells her that he only fell down. Choi changes the topic and asks Hammond if she can help him to raise his rank in the game. She tells him to get out. Meanwhile, the stalker gets a new phone, and he gets all his contacts back. Then he decides to go and look for Sangha. Da-yoon suddenly sees the stalker and asks him why he is walking in the area, as he has noticed him for a while. Then the stalker tells him that he is looking for Sangha, and Da-yoon tells him that he knows her house, and he tells the stalker to follow him. Da-yoon takes the stalker to a corner, and he begins to beat him up as he tells him not to look for Sangha again. Then the stalker begins to ask Da-yoon if he is beating him up because of Choi that had confronted him earlier. And when Da-yoon hears this, he begins to wonder if it was Choi who had tried to send the stalker away. Da-yoon immediately continues to beat the stalker up as he tells him that he had been attacked before, but he still did not stop looking for Sangha. Da-yoon threatens the stalker and tells him to leave Sangha alone. Then after beating the stalker, he passes out and Da-yoon leaves him. In school the following day, the students are playing in the field, and their physical education teacher tells them that they are going to play dodgeball, and when they are done they can all have some free time. He instructs the students to divide themselves according to their seat numbers, and Choi becomes shocked as he begins to wonder how his team would lose, as the other team is filled with the best students in sports. Choi also notices that he would be on the same team with Sangha. Then when the game starts, Taeyang begins to aim the ball at Choi so that he would get out of the game, and when Choi's teammates see this, they all avoid him and leaves him alone as he continues to dodge Taeyang's throws. Taeyang suddenly throws the ball, and when Choi notices that the ball is not coming towards him but aiming at Sangha, he immediately catches the ball to save her from getting hit by the ball. Taeyang gets out of the game, and when they continue, all the members of Choi's team gets out except himself and Sangha, who he had been protecting, and on the other team, Da-yoon and a female student remain. The student wanted to throw the ball at Choi, and he moves forward so that he would be able to catch the ball, but he suddenly sees that it was fake as Da-yoon collects the ball and throws it at Choi, but Choi falls down while trying to catch the ball, and Sangha catches the ball by saving him. She becomes excited, and she tells Choi to throw the ball back at Da-yoon as a form of revenge. But as he tries to throw the ball, he becomes scared of Da-yoon, and he begins to wonder why. The teacher blows the whistle to announce the end of the match, and he tells the students that they should go for their lunch. After lunch, Yu sits with Choi and complains about the food they were given, but Choi begins to tell himself that he could not eat as he is alone, because Yu had gone to eat with his own classmates. A girl suddenly approaches Choi, and when he looks at her, he realizes that she was the girl who had helped him when he was beaten up by the stalker, but the lady begins to talk to him informally, and she also asks him if he does not remember her name. Choi becomes surprised as she expected him to know her name because she did not tell him the previous time they met. The girl tells Choi that her name is Lee Yuri, and she wants to ask him for a favor, and when Choi asks her what the favor is, she tells him that she wants him to introduce her to Taeyang. Choi disagrees and he tells her that he cannot introduce her, but Yuri tells him that she knows they are friends, but Choi tells himself that Yuri does not know his relationship with Taeyang. Yuri holds Choi's cheek as she begs him to do it for her, and he agrees. Then Yuri and her friend leaves. Choi becomes sad as he begins to think of what to do with his life. Then he gets worried as he thinks the girls are using him as if they had all planned against him. Hammond sees Choi and she goes to meet him and asks him why he is looking sick, but he tells her that he is okay. Then she begins to pester him as she asks him if Taeyang has done something to him, but Choi begins to get emotional that he tries to tell Hammond what is going on with him, but he tells himself that he does not want her to be like him. Then he tells her that he is fine after trying to say something to her. Hammond then tells Choi that she has always noticed that he usually has a worried look on his face every time she sees him, as if he is thinking about something. Then she advised him that he should not always try to do everything by himself. As Hammond leaves, Choi decides to introduce Yuri to Taeyang, so that he would be free, and when he goes to the class, he tells himself that if Taeyang is going to the snack shop, he would tell Yuri to also go there to meet him, and he would also let her know that he does not want anyone to know that he introduced her to him. As Choi looks for Yuri to tell her to go to the snack shop, he meets her in the hall, and as he tells her that the snack shop is where Taeyang would be, he suddenly shows up behind him and asks Choi how he knows that he would be in the snack shop. Taeyang begins to hit Choi, but Yuri tells him that she is the one that sent him because she wants to see him, but Choi saves her and tells Taeyang that he wanted to get Yuri's attention, and that was why he told her that he is his friend. Taeyang continues to beat Choi, and Yuri tries to interfere, but Taeyang yells at her and her friend takes her away from the scene. As Yuri tells Choi that she is sorry, he immediately remembers her as she was his friend in middle school along with Taeyang. Some students announces the arrival of their teacher, and Taeyang tells Choi to wait after school so that he can beat him properly. Then as they get to the class, their teacher announces that a student's fee for cram school has been stolen, and the money, which is 800,000, was stolen from the students back in the morning. The teacher asks the student who has arrived in school earlier than everyone else that morning, and the students tell the teacher that it was Choi, and when the teacher asks Choi to come in front of the class, Choi becomes devastated as he wonders why bad things happen to him. The teacher then asks Choi if he knows if anyone has taken the money, but he tells the teacher that he did not take the money, and he didn't see anyone with the money. Choi realizes that his teacher is suspecting him, and he begins to feel bad as he wonders if anybody is going to help him, and suddenly, Suga stands up and tells the teacher that anytime Choi gets to school early, he is always sleeping, and she was able to know because she was in class duties at the beginning of the semester, and she also adds that the more teacher should find out who the thief may be. Choi becomes relieved a little when he sees Sangha standing up for him in front of their teacher, and the teacher tells him that he will be summoned when the investigation starts. As the teacher continues to give announcements, Taeyang tells Choi that he would make sure he beats him, and if he does not wait, he would make his life miserable. Suddenly, Yuri comes to tell the teacher that her own teacher is calling Choi, and when the teacher releases Choi, she tells him outside that she had lied to make him escape from Taeyang. Choi tells her how he had threatened him if he did not wait behind, but she begins to apologize as she tells him that she is not aware that he and Taeyang are no longer friends. Choi then narrates how he was happy when he was a friend to Taeyang during high school up till the moment he met Yuri at his cram school. Choi recounts how he had become close to Turi, and while they were walking home together, they met Taeyang, and he tells Turi that he would be her friend. Then Yuri immediately had a crush on him, and she begins to ask Choi quests out Taeyang. Taeyang immediately yells at her that she should just tell him if she liked Taeyang, but she tells him that she only wants to know more about Taeyang as people like her do not have the right to like someone because of her stature and look. Choi then talks to Yuri to motivate her, and she thanks him after their discussion that evening. The following day in school, Yuri wears makeup to the school, and all the students begins to look at her, and they all body shame her as they say she looked like she came out of a horror movie. But Yuri becomes sad, and she bows her head as she walks past the students. She hears some girls telling her that she looked awful, and when she tells them that she can hear them, they tell her that they wanted her to hear. Yuri mistakenly hits one of the girls, and she vows to have her revenge on Yuri. Later that day, the girl Yuri hit goes to meet her boyfriend, who is a gangster, and she reports Yuri to him while crying that she had hit her in school. Then the boyfriend orders some of his men to go and capture Yuri in order to teach her a lesson. As Choi gets to the school, he hears a rumor about Yuri being captured. Then he immediately tries to look for what to do so that he would save her. The girl's boyfriend begins to talk to Yuri as he tells her that he would teach her a lesson, and suddenly, Choi shows up, and he suddenly sees that the person that is about to hurt Yuri is one of Taeyang's friends, who is also his friend, and he begins to wonder what he would do as he would not want to offend his friend. Choi suddenly insults Yuri and sends her away, and when she is about to leave, she thanks him for what he had done for her, and the boy who wanted to hurt Yuri begins to yell at Choi for letting her go, but Choi tells him that he should leave her alone as she is a loser. Choi tries to divert the boy's mind away from what had just happened. Then he tells him that they should go to play games at the gaming center, but the boy begins to insult Choi, and he begins to feel bad as he realizes that Taeyang's friends are not acting like real friends to him. The following day in school, Choi hears the way Taeyang and the other boys are talking about Yuri, and when he enters the class, he becomes angry, and he asks Taeyang if he does not know the person they were talking about, and when Taeyang remembers the girl, he pulls Choi and yells at him as he threatens to beat him up. Taeyang tells Choi not to cross his path again, and Choi also tells him not to attack Yuri again. After their clash, Choi decides not to walk with Taeyang and his friends again as they are not real friends with him, and he also decides to apologize to Yuri. And when he makes his findings, he discovers that she has transferred to another school as she was hospitalized due to the beating from Taeyang's friends. Choi becomes angry, and he also feels sad as he was not able to apologize to Yuri. Then the following day, Taeyang begins to wonder how he would apologize to Choi, but he gets summoned by the teacher, who tells him to call his parents as he has been exposed that he is the leader of the gang that injured Yuri. Taeyang goes to meet one of the boys in his gang, and he begins to beat the boy up for attacking Yuri when he had told them not to, and the boy tells him that he is sorry, but he was not the one that told the teacher. Then he also lies to him that it would be Choi. Taeyang goes to meet Choi and accuses him of exposing him, but before Choi could tell him that he was not the one, Taeyang begins to beat him up and also vows that he would make his life miserable for him. And since that day, Choi had always been scared of Taeyang, because she did not know that he would get beaten by him, and he became scared of people and began to stay alone by using the random chatting app. Yuri begins to ask Choi why he has been staring into space, but he did not yell at her that he had been thinking of what had happened in the past. Choi decides to apologize to Yuri, but he tells himself that he does not want her to know all what happened to him, because she had also caused her pain. Then Taeyang comes and he tells Choi that he is going to beat him up, but as Yuri tells Choi to go and report to the teacher, he tells her that she should not worry as he would be okay, and Taeyang immediately rushes towards him to beat him up for trying to be cool in front of a lady. The two boys begin to fight, and in a few minutes, Taeyang beats Choi up. But he does not give up, and as he tries to stand up to try to attack Taeyang, Choi gets beaten up badly by his former friend. Choi decides to dodge his attacks, and after dodging for a while, Taeyang catches him and hits him on his nose. Then Choi falls to the floor feeling weak, and he remembers when he had spoken to Taeyang about being able to fight, and he also remembers that their trainer had once told him that he could use his defensive abilities as a form of attack. Suddenly, Choi stands up and begins to hit Taeyang, and after a few hits, Taeyang grabs him and hits him on his back. As Yuri sees that Taeyang would kill Choi, she immediately yells at Taeyang that she should not hurt his friend, but he tells her that he remembers that she was part of the resin that ruined his life. Choi tells Taeyang that Yuri cannot get compensation for the pain that Taeyang had caused her in the past, and Taeyang tells him that he would be compensated if the two of them drop dead. She decides to dodge Taeyang's attack, and when he dodges it, he uses his elbow, and he tries as much as possible not to get hit by Taeyang again. Choi continues to beat Taeyang with all his strength, and Taeyang also beats him back. Then he asks Choi to explain why he had ruined his life, but Choi also tells him that he should explain why he had gone to beat Yuri up when he told him not to. But as they both ask each other questions, they both begin to wonder if they are doing the right thing, as they feel like there is a misunderstanding between them. Taeyang immediately leaves Choi and walks away while he tells himself that he has to find the truth of what had happened years back. Choi and Yuri begins to discuss. Then she hits him as she asks him why he wanted to get killed by Taeyang. Then Choi asks her how she was able to lose weight, but she tells him not to worry about it. Then he immediately realizes that she had been doing exercises, as he felt how much strength she has. Taeyang meets Kim, who was part of his gang in middle school, and he tells himself that he might be the one who had reported him. The students begin to talk in the hallway, and they begin to wonder why all the class reps are summoned because of the money that was stolen. The students in the school begin to wonder why the class reps are coming together to have a meeting, and they begin to suspect if there has been a money-related incident, since they have been hearing them talking about an evidence committee. Da-yoon is asked by another class rep if he is sure that Choi is the one who stole so that the disciplinary committee can take over, but he tells her that he is not really sure of if he is guilty of the offense. They tell him that it seems that the students have ganged up against him, and they will have to tell Choi to repay him. Then they go to see the head of department, Mr. Lee, and he tells them that Choi was the first person seen on the CCTV footage on the day of the incident, and tells them all he knows about the incident. Da-yoon is told that it does not make sense from one of the class reps, and she tells him that he has not been confirmed to have committed the crime, and Da-yoon tells them that there is nothing he can do, and Jun tells them to finish up since they have the culprit. She then tells the teacher to hear form Seonji, and they all agree and accept to call him to the meeting. Seonji is called to the meeting, and he is told that he will be answering some questions. He is asked why he brought cash into the building, and he tells them that it is the way they do things in their family, and he tells them to inform Choi to pay him back as soon as possible, because if his parents find out, Choi's life will be over. She continues to ask more questions on the issue, and Seonji begins to feel uncomfortable, and one of the class reps tells her to stop, but she refuses and continues to ask him more questions with the backing of her teacher. She begins to ask him some questions, and he begins to feel resistant to answer them. She asks him what cram school he attends and comes up with a name of a cram school, and he picks one of them. She then tells him that she made it up, and he becomes surprised. Seonji sees that he has messed up, and the teacher tells them all to leave the hall. She begins to walk through the corridor of the school, and she thinks about the issue, and she suddenly sees Choi having an issue with one of the students in the school. Choi sees her, and Hammond punches him in the face, and she asks him how much of a loser he is to be targeted, and she notices that he is injured again. Somebody goes back to Kim and tells him that he was caught lying, and Kim begins to make fun of him. Kim thinks about all the reports he has heard from Si-eunji about the meeting, and he tells him to keep insisting it was Choi Jong-won so that he will be paid back the money. At the classroom, the students get the news that Si-eunji was lying, and they begin to see that Choi Jong-won is innocent, and they begin to wonder why he cannot talk for himself. Choi begins to notice that the atmosphere in his classroom has changed, and at the same time he cannot get his mind off Taeyang since he notices that he is quiet. Si-eunji comes into the classroom and begin to yell at him and accuse him again of stealing the money, but Choi tells him that he is not the one that took the money. Taeyang wakes up and tells him to leave and talk it out with Choi later, and Si-eunji tells him to come outside, but Choi refuses. Taeyang wakes up and forcefully sends him out of the class, and Choi begins to feel happy for his help. Hans, Sol, and Sangha comes in and asks him why he is injured, and he asks them a question. Choi begins to chat with Sangha, and he sees that they became close after knowing a lot of songs, and thinks she wants to be a singer when she grows up. She sends him a voice recording of her singing, and he thinks she might sing well. He plugs in his earphones and begins to bleed from his ears. They continue to chat, and she sees that he will not allow her see his face. Then she tells him to snap his hand so she will see. She sees that his hands are beautiful, and she decides to pull a prank on him, and she asks him if he is secretly a girl, and he thinks she will believe him if she sees his legs. She tells him that he looks more like a girl, and she tells him to show her what most girls do not have. She begins to laugh at his reply, and she takes a look at the photo and sees the trousers on the floor, and Choi sees that it is his uniform trousers, and he sees that he has fucked up. He begins to wait for a reply, and he sees that he is safe after getting the reply from her, and she asks him when he will be available for a date. He begins to think about everything they have been through, and he sees that he is afraid of meeting her directly, and he agrees to meet up with her. She tells him to come to the park by Saturday, and he accepts. On Saturday, he dresses as mature as possible, and he sees that he does not want to keep it a secret from her anymore. He gets to the park, and he tells her to look up, and she receives the message on her phone to look up, and she looks up. She looks up and sees Choi putting on a bear mask, so that she will not be able to see his true identity. They become speechless for a while, and she checks her chat again, and he tells her that he is her ranchet match. They remain quiet for a while, and a group of people passing think he is about to propose to her. She greets him, and he tells her to speak comfortably to her. He then remembers all he taught about 30 minutes before seeing her, and he sees that she will be mad as she found out that it was him, and how he quickly went to a shop to buy a mask. She then asks him why he is hiding his face, since they both agreed to show each other their faces. He tells her that he does not want to appear weird, and she tells him that he is looking weird by hiding his face. She then asks him how he sees her, and if she looks cute, and he tells her that she looks pretty, and she has always been pretty. She tells him that he looks nice even if she cannot see his face, and he looks young, and he thinks she means he is a kid, but she tells him that it is not like that. She then decides to change the topic, and she begins to talk about her crush. She tells him that her school life is fine since he asked about it, and she begins to talk about all his classmates, and he sees that he is not there. She suddenly talks about him, and she tells him that she thinks he is really nice, and she would like to become better friends with him. He then asks her if they're kids. She talks about which of him likes her, and she thinks about it and tells him that she thinks she would not like that, and he sees that he is an idiot. Suddenly his class rep comes along, and he sees that she told him that she has plans, and it is with him, and sees why she braided her hair in such a manner. She greets him, and Da-yoon asks her who he is, and she tells him that he is her friend from Ranchat, and he begins to look at him. They exchange greetings, and Choi tells him that he has to be going, seeing he is busy, but he feels bad and wants him to join them so that he can know more about Sungha's hidden sides. He then stands up and tells him that if another opportunity arises, they will meet again, and he sees that he can read the mood of the situation and begins to leave. Choi sees that they fit each other, and he sees that there is not a place for someone like him, and he begins to leave, seeing that Sangha is happy with him. Da-yoon stops him and tells him not to meet with Sangha anymore, and he turns his back and continues to leave. Choi begins to think about the entire situation, and he sees that the class rep would not have offered his hand to greet a postgraduate student, and he sees that something is wrong, and the class rep might know he is young. Choi thinks more about it, and he sees that what the class rep tells him feels like a warning. The next day, Choi arrives late at the school, seeing he slept late, and he sees that he might develop insomnia, seeing that he has not been sleeping, and he hears that they are planning for their retreat at the school. They all begin to talk about things that they would like to do, and Sangha tells them that she would like to sing, and Choi sees that she is going to embarrass herself as she is terrible at singing, and he begins to look for ways to stop her. He begins to see his classmates talking about things they will want to do at the retreat, and he gets a message from Sangha, and he sees that time does not wait for him. On the day of the retreat, Choi sees that everyone seems excited except him, and he sees that he should have hit his sign-up form, as he is already dreading it before getting into the bus. He suddenly gets called by Hammond, and she asks him if he has downloaded the game she told him about, and tells him that she will play with him on the bus. He becomes happy as he now has something to do on the bus, and he suddenly sees Yuri, and she tells him that she was told to gather everyone in the bus, and Choi asks her if she is not cold, and he tells her that it is spring, and she will end up freezing to death. She flexes her muscles, and he begins to feel jealous about it, and he goes to the bus. He sees that everyone is hanging out in pairs, and he sees that being alone is bad for him, and he sees Sangha, and sees that she is having fun with the class rep. He then decides to go say hi, and he immediately remembers what he was told by the class rep, and he decides to ignore. Suddenly, Joe begins to insult Sangha's dress, and Choi sees that she is always pretending to be so innocent, and he begins to wonder if it will turn into a problem. He hopes everyone will be fine since she has the class rep, and he goes into the bus. He sees that there are not many students in the bus, and he sees Taeyang and sees that he has people to talk to despite the fact that he has a very bad character. He then sits alone and begins to wonder who will sit next to him, and he sees a student who tries to sit beside him but leaves because he is sitting there. The bus stops, and he goes to pee, and he passes Taeyang. Taeyang stops Yuri and tells her that he would like to talk with her. She refuses his request many times, and he tells her that she has never allowed him to explain his situation to her, and he begins to insult her. She tells him that she is also affected by the incident and suddenly stops speaking, and Taeyang begins to wonder who she is looking at and wonders why she is not saying anything. Taeyang turns back and sees Kim, and he tells Taeyang that he cannot believe he lost contact with him after he transferred school. Taeyang tells him that they bet up a girl and ran off, leaving him taking the blame for their actions. Kim tells them not to blame it on him as he has been expelled after admitting on the case, and Choi is as the one that started the rumors. Taeyang then sees that he needs to teach Choi a lesson. Yuri immediately begins to wonder what they are talking about, and they all begin to talk more about the issue, and Choi comes in and begins to wonder what they are talking about after hearing about the conversation. Choi tells them that he never started the rumor, and he heard about it from the rumors that were going around. Kim tries to push it on the victim, and Taeyang tells him that the victim is Yuri and tries to hit him, seeing it was Kim. Taeyang begins to fight him, and he tells him that there is no point to their fight, and he remembers the beatings given to him by his father, and he tells her that he will turn her into a retard again and goes to punch her. Choi steps in and tells Kim that he might be scared of him, but his actions are wrong, and Kim tries to hit him. Choi sees that he will not be able to damage a huge guy like him, but sees that he will need to get close to him so that his attacks will have an impact. Choi gives him a very huge blow, but Kim returns the blow back to him, and Choi sees that there is a large difference between them, both as he lies on the floor. Kim then asks him if he is trying to get himself killed, and tells him that he is still the same weak middle schooler. Choi stands up and tells him that he is faster and more accurate than him, and tells him that he is the retard. Kim realizes that he has started to lose balance, and he sees that Choi targeted his chin earlier. Taeyeon then thanks him and gives him another blow to his face, and Kim begins to spit out blood from his mouth. The entire school then sees that there is a fight and goes to separate them. Kim begins to wonder if he is a teacher, and he tells Kim that he should not be fighting in a retreat. Taeyeon then tells Kim that they will see him later, and begins to go to the bus. They arrive at their destination, and they begin to settle in after they leave the fight. Choi begins to think about all that has happened, and sees that Sangha is sending him a message, and he sees that she has sent him a message, and he sees that it is a video, and becomes surprised after opening it. He sees that she is putting on swimsuits, and he begins to wonder why she brought that, and he begins to message her, and he tells her not to send photos of herself again to anyone, especially strangers. She then sends him a message, and one of the students in his dorm begins to wonder what he is looking at, and he immediately hides his phone from him. He immediately runs out of the room, and they begin to wonder what is wrong with him. He gets to a safe place, and he sees that he should not have run off in that manner as he will look weird. Suddenly, Harmon comes in and tells him that they need to talk, but he tries to push it tonight, and she tells him that they will be busy at night, and it is convenient now. He then agrees and follows her downstairs to talk, and he sees that he is alone with a girl. She then begins to ask him about the fight, and she asks him why he fought with Kim at the service stop. Choi tells her that it is very complicated, and she tells him that something is wrong seeing that he is targeted by so many people. She then tells Harmon that his actions have prevented harm to someone, and he has no regrets, and he tells her that he has always managed to help someone even if he knows he is not a great person. She begins to tell him that he looks like a retard while doing everything, and he begins to feel maybe if he was not there, everything would have worked out fine, and he sees that he would need to ignore it. He sees that she is helping him, and he promises to listen to her words. Suddenly, Taeyang is called to come for his makeup, and he sees them, and he begins to run away from them. Choi goes for the class competitions, and he sees that he is just a spectator, and he begins to wish that they are done with what they are doing. He then begins to play duo with a friend he met in the contest, and he sees that there is a dance contest, which is by class 5, which is Harmon and Yuri's class. He suddenly sees Yuri while she is dancing, and he sees that even if she has suffered much, he is so cool. They finish the dance and he sees that it is time to choose the most beautiful lady of their school, and Taeyang comes out and Sangha becomes happy, but the class rep tells her to calm down. The entire school becomes surprised, and they begin to laugh at him. After the end of the contest, Taeyang came first, and they all began to talk about it. Choi sees that the remaining boys are too noisy, and he wants to call Jongwha, and he would like to play with him in person. He suddenly sees Yuri, and she begins to run towards him, and she pushes the student playing the game and jumps on Choi's body. Choi becomes unconscious and wakes up and sees that he is on her lap, and he tells her that she is not okay, and should snap out of it, because it is strange to him. She then tells him that she is fine and thanks him for saving her at the service stop, but he does not believe her. She then assures him that he is okay and pulls him closer to her, so he can see that she is okay. She drags him close to her lips and blows air to his nose, and tells him that he does not smell alcohol, meaning she is okay, and she begins to laugh and walks away. Taeyang suddenly appears and asks him if they are both dating, and Choi begins to wonder how long he has been standing there. Choi tells him that they are just friends, and they are not dating. Then Taeyang asks him if it is Sangha that he likes, and he begins to wonder how he was able to find out, and begins to wonder if it was obvious. Taeyang then begins to mention the number of times he has cared for her, and Choi tells him that it is all a lie but a coincidence. Taeyang agrees to stop and wishes him good luck, and Choi begins to wonder what is wrong with him all of a sudden. Choi then sees that he is going to fight, and Taeyang hopes to see Kim, and Kim begins to ask after Choi seeing that they were quite the duo earlier. Kim then tells him that he is trying to find him because he feels guilty, and Taeyang tells him that he is correct, and that is why he will take responsibility for it. Kim then tells him that he did not come alone and shows him his friends. He then asks him what he will do, and Taeyang tells him that he will fight him, and he goes to attack him, and they begin to fight. Choi sees that Taeyang was going out to fight, and he feels that he has gone to fight Kim and sees that it is none of his business. He then gets a message from Sangha, and he sees that she is at the vending machine, and he begins to wonder if he should go there and see if maybe he will be able to talk to her. He greets them, and he tells them that he has come to get a drink, and he does not know if he will see them. They then ask him if Jiwon went into his room to cause havoc. They begin to wonder what he is doing there, and he tells them that he will be on his way as soon as he gets his drink. He sees that they are gone, and he begins to see that they do not have much to talk about, and he decides to go outside. Meanwhile, Kim continues to fight with Taeyang, and Kim sends his guys to hold him down since he is not able to hold him. Taeyang then warns them not to come near him, and he begins to beat them up and tells them that he is stronger than them. Taeyang takes them all out, and he goes to continue his fight with Kim. Choi begins to go out, and on his way, he sees Da-yoon, his class rep. Taeyang tells Kim that he is still the same as 2 years ago, and nothing has changed, and tells him that he would have been dead if he did not bring anyone with him. Kim laughs at him and asks him if he still feels he is the best after turning into a criminal, and goes to him to beat him up after insulting him. Kim tells him that they are not boxing, seeing that he is dodging the attacks, and Taeyang begins to beat him up and tells him that it is true that he is living a shitty life, but he never asked him to be his follower. He beats up Kim, and Kim becomes unconscious, and he tells him to answer his questions, if not he will be killed, and he asks for his phone numbers and his location, and continues to hit him. Da-yoon comes to the scene and asks him what he is doing, and he tells him that he is beating them up, and asks his class rep if he would like to stop him, and promises not to stop even if he tries. He then tells him that there is still one more witness, and he tells him that that is how he was able to find him, and they see that it is Choi. He then tries to talk to Choi, seeing that they are both involved in it, and Kim wakes up and tries to fight, and Da-yoon warns him that he will face the consequences if he tries to continue. Taeyang then apologizes to Choi and tells them that there is no reason for them to fight anymore, since they were both deceived. Choi pauses after hearing the entire story and asks him if he is kidding. Taeyang begins to wonder if he has said something wrong, and what made him give that kind of response. He then tells Choi that he wants them to fix their memories and go back to the way they were, and Choi asks him how they can fix memories, and tells him that they can't, and promises not to blame his situation on him anymore. Choi begins to think about everything, and tells him that he has always been this kind of bastard, and tells him that he is different from him. Taeyang then asks him what he wants and asks him if he wants to beat him up, but Choi tells him that it is not the point, and he tells him that back then and now are still the same because he is so scared of him. Choi tells him to stay away from him, and Taeyang agrees and begins to leave. He suddenly stops and asks him if he plans on living like that with his conscience, and Da-yoon tries to talk to him, but he tells him that it is all in the past, and he does not want to talk about him or to him anymore. Da-yoon begins to talk to him, and he asks Choi if he is doing something that he will regret, and Choi tells him that he is not doing anything that he will regret, and he tells him that he already knows more than him. Da-yoon becomes surprised and tells him that it is good, and tells them to go inside as it is late. The following day, the students begin to head back home. Choi gets home and he asks Sangha if she was able to tell him, and she tells him that she was not able to do it, and he begins to feel relieved. He tries to see if she has more to say, and he sees a different screen and sees that the person texting is within 3 kilometers. He sees that it is super close and sees that he will accept the request. He begins to chat with the person and he sees that it's a normal chat, and he drops his phone and sees that it is time to sleep. Taeyang begins to prepare for school at his place, and he is told to hurry out of the bathroom. Meanwhile at school, Choi asks Yuri the kind of exercises she does as she is thinking of exercising seriously. She then realizes that he wants her to tell him her routine, and she tells him to listen up, and she pours it all out to him, and he becomes speechless. Meanwhile, Sangha seems to be in a problem, and she asks him to solve an equation for her, since he is a postgraduate student. Choi begins to try to solve it despite knowing he does not know it either, and his sister comes in and tells him not to come out of his room, seeing she wants her friends to come over. Choi agrees and continues, seeing he is used to things like that. Harmon is playing a video game, and she tells Choi to go put in more money for her session, and he tells her that he does not have any money, but she keeps insulting him. They begin to talk about Taeyang, and she sees that he is hot, and she concludes on not dating anyone. Taeyang then tries to talk to Harmon, but she tells him not to talk to her as he is a thug. Suddenly, the students plan on going on vacation after everything that has happened throughout the session. Choi sees that the person that messaged him earlier keeps messaging him, and he tells her to get lost, but she just thinks that is interesting. Choi begins to play a game on his phone with his friend, and he sees that his friend does not help him, and he would have to get one more win. He then tells him that he has to rank up his abilities for him. He then shows Choi a picture of his classmates hanging out, and he asks Choi why he was not invited, but Choi tells him not to ask him. Hammond then asks Sangha why Choi is not at the beach, and she tells her that she totally forgot, and Taeyang comes in and thinks he would see girls on the beach. Taeyang then sees a punching game and decides to try it out, and he scores a high score. He then hears some of his classmates talking about a game and he ignores them. Choi then comes to the beach, and he cannot believe that he came to the beach with his friend, and he begins to regret coming and prefers to be an insider. The girl messages him again, and he begins to wonder why she is texting him, and he tells her that he is at the beach with his friends. He continues to chat with her, and he sees that he is the same as her, and that is why he doesn't have a good relationship with anyone. He begins to think about himself, and he sees that he has always been alone. He raises his head and sees Sangha. She is surprised by the chance of meeting him on the beach and tells him to accompany her with the rest of the group. She suddenly sends him a message through Ranchat telling him that she is afraid of a boy who apparently followed her to the beach, whom she did not want to invite. She then turns back after Choi has read her message, not knowing she was talking to him, and she asks him if he is coming. Choi becomes angry, and he begins to see all he has suffered just for her sake, and she asks him why he is staring off into space and asks him if he feels sick. Choi immediately begins to get himself together, and not minding what is said by Sangha. He agrees and goes to where his classmates are. He sees that Taeyang is also there, and he sees that it is very awkward. They then notice that they do not have any chopsticks, and they ask the boys to go get it, but they suggest playing a game instead. Taeyang sees that he is the mafia, and he tries to kill Choi, but he sees that he was saved, and he plans to kill someone else in the next round. Taeyang sees that he cannot kill anyone, and he is insulted by Hammond, and she tells him to go to the store. Taeyang sees that he should not have come, and he sees that his record has been broken, and he begins to wonder who it was. He then sees that he must beat the record. Meanwhile, his classmates are waiting for him, and they begin to wonder if he died along the way. Sangha begins to tell her friend that she feels that Choi likes her, and she tells her that she noticed, and that may be the reason why he followed her to the beach. Her friend then reminds her that she posted it on her Instagram, and that is how he knew where she is, and he might be stalking her, and she becomes surprised. Taeyang comes in on their conversation, and they begin to wonder if he was listening to them, but he tells them not to talk so loudly next time, as he was not listening to their conversation. He then asks Sangha how long she is going to cling on to others like a child, and tells her to go and ask him herself, but she is scared to do that. Her friend tells him that the reason Choi is going through all that is because of him, and Taeyang tells her that he is aware, but he is not sticking up for him since he does not want him to. Sangha realizes what she has done and sees that it is bad, and Taeyang receives a call, and he is asked about the chopsticks. He is also told that they ate with their hands and advises him not to come back. They arrive at the beach the following morning, and they see that it is a good thing that they came early, and they plan to swim, but Choi sees that he cannot go into the water, as he did not come with his swimsuit. Suddenly Sangha tries to talk to him, and he notices that some guys are trying to force her to talk to them, and he begins to think if he should do something, but the class rep comes in and saves her. He then sees Hammond, and she tells him to hang with her, while the others ride on a banana boat. Choi then sees that Sangha is having fun on her own, and he notices that she is going somewhere with the class rep, and he decides to follow them. He sees that they are really close, and he begins to feel bad for everything. He is then met at the spot by the class rep, and they both begin to stare at one another. The class rep tells him that he told him to stop, and he begins to mention a lot of things to him. And he tells the class rep that he has a crush on her, and he tells him that he has committed a grave sin against him. And the class rep tells him that he told him to stop using Ranchat, and he sees that he is now aware of what he has caused. Choi tells the class rep that he did all that because he likes her, but tells him to enjoy her since he cannot be with her. He turns to leave, but the class rep laughs at him, and he gets angry. They begin to get into a heated argument because of Sangha, and Choi gets angry, trying to beat him up, but the class rep blocks his attack, and he tries again, but sees that his hands were caught. Choi sees that he cannot move an inch, and sees that he has been hit by the class rep. The class rep begins to use the anger that he has been rejected by Sangha because of him messaging her on Ranchat, and he tells Choi that he is not in a good mood and there is a change of plans. The class rep tells him that he does not have any intentions to fight him, and tells him not to use Ranchat anymore. The class rep tries to explain things to him, but Choi sees it all as rubbish, and continues to fight him, but the class rep continues to dodge his attacks. Choi sees that he cannot fight him with his strength, and he tries to use his legs, but he is stopped by the class rep, and he tells Choi that he understands people like him. Choi sees that he is dangerous after wondering how he knew that it was raining on the day he was talking about, and he tries to attack him again. The class rep dodges all his attacks and grabs his face and throws him on the floor. The class rep catches him and tells him that he has to take responsibility for his actions and tries to blow him, but Hammond comes in and stops him. She then asks him why he is beating someone up when they are on a vacation, and he begins to wonder why they are so close, and she threatens to call the cops on him. He tells her that she is already aware of the situation, that is why she did not ask what is going on, and she begins to wonder what he is talking about. She tells him that there is nothing wrong with him using random chatting, and Choi begins to wonder what is going on, and they begin to talk about it, and the class rep tells her that he is disappointed in her trying to save him. The class rep then asks her if she feels for Choi, and she begins to wonder what he is talking about, and the class rep tells her that it might also be sympathy. They begin to argue much, and Choi apologizes and tells them that it is all his fault, and he promises not to message her again as it is all his fault, and he will not try to meddle in their affairs anymore. Choi tells her that he is sorry and begins to leave, and Hammond begins to tell the class rep that he is more human than him, and the class rep finds it hard to believe. Choi begins to go home feeling pathetic, and he sees that the class rep's words hit a very tight spot, and he sees Yuri, and she begins to wonder why he is hurt again, and he tells her that they don't need him and he will be going home. Taeyang sees him and begins to wonder what is wrong with him, and Choi walks away and tells himself that he will stop liking Sangha. Choi wakes up and he begins to wonder why he is weak after so much sleep. He sees that Sangha has been messaging him and he has not been able to read it. He begins to chat with the other girl on Ranchat, and his sister comes in and tells him to go to school as his parents are worried about him. He apologizes to his sister, and she tells him to get a haircut as his mom left some money for him, and she advises him to go get some fresh air. Choi sees that he doesn't want to meet any of his classmates, and he sees that he will use Ranchat. He decides to go see the girl outside, and he sees that he has seen her in his dreams. They both introduce themselves, and Choi sees that she is young and begins to wonder if she is a university student, and he asks her what she wants from him, as he is certain that she has a hidden motive. She puts on her glasses, and she sees that he needs a haircut, and she follows him to get one. He sees Seonji, and he begins to pick up a fight with him and calls him a thief. He then begins to embarrass him in the presence of Leela, and she tells him that she understands and begins to talk to her in an informal way. They all become surprised, and begins to tell her that he will make her school life hell for her, and he asks her if she is aware of who Kim is, and she tells him that he is bluffing. Choi sees that he does not have the kind of tenacity that she has, and that is why he cannot do anything. She tells him that she does not know what happened to them both, and she tells him not to fault Choi as he is better than him. Choi begins to see that she should not stick up for him, and begins to remember everyone that has done that for him, and he begins to hate himself. He also begins to remember all the comments from all his friends, and he begins to wonder why people perceive him differently from how he perceives himself. Seonji then tries to hit her, and Choi immediately yells at him to stop what he plans to do. Seonji then hits him and becomes surprised when he is blown back by Choi, and they all become speechless. He tries to attack Choi again, but Choi continues to beat him up. Choi knocks him down and calls him Kim's leftovers. Seonji then calls Kim and tells him to call the others and come to put an end to him once and for all, but Kim tells him to take care of it on his own as he is playing a game, and Kim tells him to take care of his problems on his own and ends the call. Seonji becomes surprised, and Choi tells him that Lim has been using him, and calls him a loser with no friends. He then tells Si Eun-gyo come at him, but Leela holds his hands and tells him that they did not meet for a fight, and tells him that they do not have much time left. Leela then tells him that she has not told him everything about herself, and she tells him that she is not as confident as he saw her earlier, and she tells him that she had hung out with a bad crowd and life has been tough on her. He then tries to give her words of encouragement, and she holds him and thanks him. She then asks him if he would not leave her, and he tells her that he will be with her, and she reminds him that he was going to get a haircut. He comes back to show her how he looks, and she becomes surprised. Choi tells her that he looks awkward, and she tells him that he should have cut it like that earlier as he looks like Nam Judeok, and she puts on her glasses, and she tells him that he is not that handsome. Choi then tells her to keep the glasses on, and he sees that his life has changed since that day. He starts to exercise and he sees that he has someone to talk to every day, and he began to go out with her, so his parents began to worry less about him. He then begins to wonder why a girl like Lilo would be friends with him, and he begins to wonder if they are both clinging on to each other. Choi begins to see that she is pretty as they hang out more often, and he begins to take a photo with her, and he sees that he is so happy because he never knew he would be able to spend his days like that. She then tells him to follow her to the Hans River, and he tells her that he has never been there before. She becomes happy and begins to tell him about her ex and how he verbally abuses her. She also begins to tell him about how her parents got divorced and how she has been struggling to survive. She tells him all the evil she has done, and she thinks he has started to hate her, but he tells her that she has not done anything wrong, and that is what he understands. They talk for a while and Choi decides to walk her home. He begins to leave and he sees that she is being followed by a guy. If you waited this far, let's confuse the fake fans amongst us and comment "Rip Choi." Kindly subscribe and blow this video up with your likes. Until next time, do take care and stay safe.